Hi everyone, and welcome to Plea 14. You are watching live, and I want you to stop whatever you are doing right now, because what is happening today at the Vatican is one of those rare moments in history that the entire world needs to pay attention to. Pope Leo XIV, the First, American-born Pope in the history of the Catholic Church, has just delivered a message that has left the entire globe standing still. A message not of politics, not of power, but of compassion, of humanity, of peace. And we are going to break it all down for you, right here, right now. Now, before we dive in, let's make sure everyone understands who exactly we are talking about. Pope Leo XIV, born Robert Francis Prevost, is a Chicago native. A man from the American Midwest now sits at the very head of the Roman Catholic Church, a global institution with over 1.4 billion followers worldwide. He was elected Pope in May 2025. But what makes Leo XIV extraordinary is that before becoming Pope, he spent decades as a missionary and bishop in Peru, deeply immersed in the struggles of ordinary people, the poor, the marginalized, the forgotten. That background shapes everything about how he leads. He speaks Spanish fluently. He has lived among communities that know poverty firsthand. He understands suffering not from a palace window, but from the streets. And a recent survey tells us 78% of US Catholics view him favorably, an extraordinary number for a newly elected pope. So, who is Leo XIV? He is a man of the people, a pope of the global south, a bridge builder in a world desperately searching for bridges. Now let's talk about what has been happening over the last 48 hours at the Vatican. On June 26th and 27th, Pope Leo XIV convened an extraordinary consistory of cardinals, a rare, high-level summit where the Pope gathers the most senior leaders of the Catholic Church from across the globe to tackle the most urgent questions facing both the Church and the world. And what did they discuss? The agenda was extraordinary. Session 1 asked, "In what kind of world are we called to proclaim the gospel?" Cardinals reflected on the wounds of our time: war, poverty, social fragmentation, polarization, loneliness, and a dangerous loss of meaning sweeping through modern societies. Session 2 tackled what Pope Leo described as the culture of power and the civilization of love. He made it crystal clear: war and violence grow out of this culture of power that has infected politics, economics, technology, and even religion. His call was for something radically different, a culture of dialogue, cooperation and non-violence rooted in the gospel, and, crucially, the cardinals were moved deeply by conversations about young people. Pope Leo said in his closing address that he was particularly struck by the way the cardinals spoke about young people, especially their suffering that can lead, in his words, to the extreme despair of taking their own lives. Youth mental health, global despair, loneliness. These are the issues Pope Leo XIV is putting front and center. The consistory concluded with the Pope saying, and I love this, "May she teach us to preserve unity in diversity and to serve the gospel of peace with humility, courage and hope." Unity in diversity. In 2026, those 4 words feel like a revolution. And then came today, Sunday, June 28, 2026. Right after the historic consistory, Pope Leo XIV appeared at his window overlooking St. Peter's Square to lead the Sunday Angelus prayer. But this was no ordinary Angelus, because just days earlier, on Wednesday, June 24th, Venezuela was struck by not one, but 2 massive earthquakes in rapid succession. A magnitude 7.2, followed immediately by a 7.5 back-to-back. One of the most devastating seismic events Latin America has witnessed in years. The death toll has risen to nearly 1,500 people, 1,500 human beings gone. Rescue crews are still digging through rubble in La Guaira state. Nearly 70,000 people remain unaccounted for. Families are waiting by phones. Parents are searching for children. An entire nation is in mourning, and into that grief, Pope Leo XIV stepped forward with a message delivered directly in Spanish, speaking to the Venezuelan people in their own language. A deeply personal gesture from a man who spent years of his life in neighboring Peru. He expressed his closeness to Venezuelan sisters and brothers affected by the earthquakes. He renewed his spiritual solidarity with the families of the deceased and the injured. He thanked those generously carrying out search and rescue. But he did not stop at words. He immediately authorized an emergency donation of 100,000 euros from the Vatican. And the Vatican was clear. This is only a first step. More assistance will follow. Catholic parishes across Venezuela have already opened their doors, sheltering families, offering food, medicine, and comfort. The European Union has mobilized 5 million euros in emergency aid. The United States has deployed military assets. A U.S. Marine Corps Major General has already arrived in Caracas. The international community is rallying. And at the moral center of that rally is the voice of Pope Leo XIV. Now, I want to take a moment is because we don't just report the news. We understand it. Before speaking about Venezuela, Pope Leo XIV reflected on the Gospel of Matthew, on detachment, loss, and hospitality. He said that love only bears fruit in self-giving, when we are willing to lose a little of ourselves to make room for another, to lose a little time to listen to a friend, to lose a little comfort to share in a time of hardship. And then he spoke of Venezuela. Do you see what he did? He didn't just insert Venezuela as a news item. He prepared the world spiritually to respond to Venezuela. He laid the foundation, loss, generosity, hospitality, and then pointed to a people in need. That is not just a sermon. That is leadership. Now you may be asking, why should I care? I may not be Catholic. I may live thousands of miles from Rome. Let me tell you, we are living in a world on fire. Wars are raging. Economies are fracturing. Young people are drowning in anxiety and despair. And at every level of global leadership, we are starving for voices that speak about something bigger than self-interest. Pope Leo XIV, in just 48 hours, convened the greatest minds of the Catholic world to discuss war, poverty, and division. He condemned the culture of power. He called for a civilization of love. He reached out, personally, financially, spiritually, to a broken nation, and he did it in the language of the people he served for decades. His encyclical, Magnifica Humanitas, the magnificence of humanity, is focused on safeguarding human dignity in the age of artificial intelligence. At a time when machines threaten to replace human connection and meaning, the Pope is saying no. Humanity is magnificent, and we must protect it. 1% of U.S. Catholics view him favorably, but the reach of what he is doing goes far beyond Catholics. It speaks to anyone, anywhere, who believes that human beings are worth more than their economic utility. That peace is worth pursuing. That compassion is the most powerful force on earth. Friends, every angelus, every consistory, every donation, every word spoken in Spanish to a grieving Venezuelan family, it all matters. Tell me in the comments, do you think the world is listening? Do you believe compassion can still cut through the noise of today's world? Drop your thoughts. Share this video, because people need to know what's happening. And if you are new here, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Because whether you are from Chicago or Caracas, from Rome or Rawalpindi, we are all part of the same human family. And Pope Leo XIV reminded us of that today. This has been Plea 14, your source for the news that moves the world. Stay informed. Stay compassionate, Kuda Hafiz, and God bless Venezuela.